Hello, today we will be reviewing dominant range. So we're going back to the basic definitions for dominant range that we used to use back in Algebra 1, Algebra 2. So for domain, remember we are talking about all the possible x values. So we are going to put emphasis on all because we want to list every single possible x value when we list the domain. Same thing for range. We want to have all the possible y values. Again, same definition that we used back in Algebra 1, nothing really new. But do remember that in precalculus, we use the interval notation. So you're going to see some brackets, you're going to see some parentheses, you're going to see some commas, some numbers, and some infinity signs. So remember, the brackets means that the numbers that you are talking about are included, and the ones in parentheses, they're not included. So we're going to make a little chart to help us know if we're going to use brackets or parentheses. So every time you see a solid or filled in circle, we are going to use brackets. Every time you see a solid line, we're also going to use brackets. For the not included, they're going to be the opposite. So the opposite of a closed circle is going to be an open circle or a hole in the graph. Instead of a solid line, we're going to see a dashed line. And every time we see a plus or a minus infinity, so negative infinity or positive infinity. Keep that in mind because I'm going to be referring back to this chart in the future. Make sure it's in your notes as well. So let's start with a basic example looking for dominant range. So if we remember, we always start with domain. We always start coming from the left towards the right. So we see an arrow pointing to the left, meaning it's going to start somewhere on the negative infinity, and then it's going to go up to this point. So it's going to be from, again, negative infinity, and then it's going to stop at negative 6. Negative 6 is an open circle, so it's not included, it's not part of our domain. We'll do the same thing for range. Again, we start from the bottom coming towards the top. The first number that we see when we are coming up is y equals 0 right here. So we start with the parentheses, and then we go all the way up to infinity. So that will be our domain and our range. Again, we're just doing the basics. So let's try something a little bit more hard, more complicated on this example. So looking at our domain, again, it's going to start somewhere along here. So we're going to start at negative infinity. We come down, we get to this point, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 8. Negative 8 is not part of our domain because they're both times that it happens, they're open circles. So we need to stop our interval at negative 8, but we do pick up right after negative 8 on the opposite side. So I can open my interval with negative 8, come down up to negative 4. This one is open, but this one is closed. So technically my domain is continuous on this piece because it continues down here, and then it keeps on going all the way to infinity. So I can close my interval at infinity. Now we'll do the range. So again, start from the bottom. You see this arrow coming down from negative infinity up to y equals 1 right here. 1 is included because it's filled in. And then from 1, we notice that there's not any points until you get to 3. This is the part that confuses people because there's 2 open circles, 1 on each side, but remember there's a line connecting them. So it is possible to have a y value of 3 because it happens here, 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 an infinite number of times between the 2 open circles. So I'm going to say union, which means and. So this is part of my range, And this is also part of my range, which is just 3, starts at 3, ends at 3, and then it goes up to 6. 6 is not included, going all the way to infinity, which will be the last piece of my graph. Let's do another example. So on this one, we're looking for domain, we're looking for range. So our domain starts at negative infinity because of the arrow pointing to the left. We get here, we have an open circle, but then if we look right below it, you will see one that's filled in. So you can continue it from negative infinity, going all the way to here, coming back down, going back up, we get to here, it's open, but if you look right above it, it's closed. So you continue, so your domain will actually go from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity. Again, when we do the range, start from the lower value. You can see this arrow coming down, going all the way up to here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So y equals 7. So negative infinity to 7. 7 is not included. It does happen twice, but both of them are open along the y equals 7 line. After 7, we start back up at 9. It's closed, so it should be included. So union 9 all the way up to infinity. And now we have both our domain and our range listed. Let's do one more example. So now we see something different. This is the first time that we're seeing an asymptote or the dashed lines. We see one going vertically, one going horizontally. So looking at our domain, start on the farthest to the left. So the farthest to the left is going to be -6. It is included because it's a filled-in circle. The first time that we follow it, the first break in our domain that we have will be -4. So stop your interval at -4. It's not included. Again, it's open. Continue right after -4. Go all the way up to 1. Again, -4 up to +1. Close it with a parenthesis because it's not included. And then we'll have one last piece starting right after 2. Again, if you forget, you can refer back to the chart to see that because this is an asymptote, it's never going to cross. So the dashed line, that number will never be included. And then it continues going all the way to infinity. Our range start from the bottom, coming towards the top. So again, we're going to start negative infinity. There's a break at 0, so we must stop our interval at 0. We cannot include it because of the dashed line and because of the open circle. Nowhere else we have anything, so we have to stop at 0. Create it with a union right after 0. And then we're going to come up all the way up to 1, 2, 3, 5. So bring it up to 5, close it. Some of you might be asking, what about this piece? This piece is already included on the 0 to 5 because this little piece is from 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is already included when you say it right after 0 all the way up to 5. So you don't have to list it because it's already there. You don't want to list it twice because then it's redundant. You already have the information. So that was a quick review on domain and range. Thank you, and I will see you on the next lesson.